What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Opinionated Off-Topic. We appreciate all the support we've had. We've grown a ton since the last time we recorded. We're already almost at 1,500 followers on Instagram, so we're growing very quickly. I got Carlos Mojica here, co-owner, co-founder of Opinionated Media. And today we're with Matt Choi. Super excited to interview him. Met him at the Kollective. Amazing gym, amazing community there. And came up to me. He was like, I like your bracelets at the social hour. And then we just hit it off from there. And then I got connected, and now we're sitting here. So super excited, super inspirational, just like playing football because I played too. And then seeing your journey into other, hobbies and all that since, you transitioned into what you do now. So
I'm super pumped to be here, man. Yeah. Look, it's nothing like a low-kai bracelet that'll get a conversation started, dog. Yeah. I know, I be repping them, bro. Yeah. Shout out to Steven, man. Low-kai all day.
Heck yeah.
Thank you for taking time out your day, come doing this. I know you're a busy man, so we appreciate you taking time out your day and doing this for us.
Of course, man. I'm super humbled, and anytime I get an opportunity to chat, it's, I always tell people, like, podcasts for me are like, it's like, people should practice more of speaking, right? And I think it's an opportunity for me to just share my story and hopefully help other people along the way. So I'm super humbled and glad to be here to chat with y'all, man.
I don't know if it's... So my aunt teaches in the San Antonio School District. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if it's like if it's just San Antonio or Texas or just their school in general, but one of their studies, she's a fourth grade teacher, one of their studies is one of their periods is a podcast period. To like help people like talk in front of people and also help them learn how to speak and whatnot.
Dude, I mean, it's how it should be. I mean, I'm a firm believer that like school should start to adapt to the future and technology and things that are relevant in the current day. Because, I mean, a lot of what I didn't pay attention to back in the day and when I was a student doesn't really serve me in a current state. And I think as teachers, as school, as an organization, should start to like develop and adapt to what's currently happening in society. And it's actually funny you say that because I had an opportunity to work with the Alpha School, which is downtown. It's a private school, and they don't really follow the same rules as like public schools. So like they actually teach their kids AI, trading stocks, like really like teaching things that are like real practical life skills, but teaching them in middle school, in a high school level, right? So it's one of those things where now with so much technology, these kids can just look up whatever they want. They can find the answers. Like there's no reason to tell a kid to memorize the presidents if they can just Google it or ask Siri. So to your point, it's awesome that education, even in Texas here, is like starting to adapt because I think that's the future. And for us to compete with other countries, like the kids got to get smarter, 100%. I mean, if you look at, I mean, dude, most people from other countries come to America, they get their degree in college, and then they go back to their home country, and then like they use all the knowledge, and then they build shit other places. Yeah. So if we're not nurturing that and developing it here, it's gonna be it's an important thing.
My junior year, we had like a foreign exchange student, and she was like everything like here is so much easier. She was like on tests, we had multiple choice on our tests. She was from Brazil, I think. She was like, you have multiple choice on our test. Over there, it's all handwritten.
Yeah.
You know it or you don't. Like you don't get to guess.
Yeah. I was good at guessing.
Yeah.
I'm with you on that.
So I guess give us a little backstory. Like what was like your upbringing like, and then obviously you played football, and I guess kind of what led you to Austin.
Hell yeah. Quick origin story. I love it. I grew up with a single mother. Parents split when I was super young. I have an older brother who's 3 years older than me. My parents split when I was like 2 years old, so it's kind of how I grew up. Grew up in New Jersey, in New York. I lived the suburb life Monday through Friday with my mom, and then I lived Friday through Sunday with my dad in Queens or Brooklyn. And then at 8, I ended up moving to Las Vegas with my mom and my brother. We drove from New York to Las Vegas. At the time, this was like 2008. The recession just happened, and my mom lost her job at HP Hewlett-Packard, and she needed a new opportunity. So my aunt was in the gambling industry at the time, with selling slot machines in Vegas. And at this time, Vegas was like kind of like on the rise. Like real estate was super cheap. My mom ended up moving us there, lived there for 5 years. So that's when I started playing football. After being there, though, my mom was dating this guy that lived in Maryland, and we ended up moving to Maryland. And that's where I had most of my formidable years, middle school, all the way through high school. I fell in love with playing football when I was in Vegas, but it really started to turn into something when I was in Maryland. My coach told me in my sophomore year that I have a legitimate chance to earn a college scholarship, and my mom couldn't believe it. She thought that I was going to go to school for education. And football was my life. It was my identity. It was who I was. It was what I breathed. It was what I talked about, what I was comfortable with doing. I put my time and energy into it. My goal was to earn a college scholarship because I couldn't. My mom and my dad wouldn't be able to afford to take me to like actually pay for my school. I ended up playing receiver at Monmouth University, a small Division I AA school in New Jersey. Funny how like that full circle moment of coming back to Jersey after being born there. And I studied business marketing and management. I wanted to like test and see if I could go play in the NFL, but I just wasn't that good in college. Went through a couple injuries and just didn't perform well enough. Got into a sales and operations job that I hated. And I ended up leaving the company after a year and a half, and I got into personal training. And this was probably 6 months before COVID. I built up a personal training business and I got laid off as a trainer. Then I found running kind of to be my solitude, and it's kind of was like my peace and my challenge and my fitness in that sense. I was reading Goggins' book, Can't Hurt Me. And it inspired me to challenge myself and to step out of my comfort zone and to do things that's uncomfortable. And I just put one foot in front of the other, and I found myself really enjoying running. Not because I was really just good at it, but because it was uncomfortable, because it was a challenge. And it made me feel like I was playing football again. And it helped me develop like self-discipline and patience and all those things. And then fast forward to 2021, I ended up making a decision to move to Austin because my mom had gotten remarried at the time and she was moving to Delaware. So she kind of told me and my brother, like, yo, you'll have a decision. You could take over the mortgage or you can go move closer to DC. But at that point, I was working remotely, fully for myself. And I was like, you know what? This is a good time for me to bet on myself. And I ended up packing my Honda Civic that I drove here with. And I packed everything I could and I moved to Austin. And this was about February of 2021. And the rest is history. I feel like it's one of the best decisions I've made. And I lied. It was February 2022. It was last year.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, that's kind of like a full context. I know it's quick for people listening at home, but that's a quick background.
One thing, when you're in Vegas, was Bishop Gorman? Was
Yeah,
that a thing?
for sure.
Was it as big as it is like still today, or no?
I mean, obviously, I was still like going into middle. I was like in middle school, so I wasn't paying as much attention, and I wasn't ever going to go to a private school. But it was around. But I don't think it was much of a powerhouse as it currently, sits now.
Gotcha. What was it about football that like just drove you to football?
You know, I played soccer first because my mom didn't want me to get hurt. Classic Asian immigrant parents. And the funny thing is that I was pretty good at soccer naturally. Like, honestly, I've been pretty blessed. Like, you know, God has gifted me with some ability as an athlete to pick things up, to pick sports up pretty quick. I played soccer first, but after my first year playing soccer, I tried out for a club team. And I started realizing that, damn, the skill level is actually a lot different. Like, they're like some of these kids, like the skill sets they have are significantly higher. Like, I just played off of effort. I ended up not making it to any of the club teams. So at that moment, I said, Mom, I want to play flag football. She said, you never played. I'm like, I was like, but I want to. Like, this is the sport I watch. Michael Vick was my favorite player. Like, I watched the game of football more than I watched soccer. So the first year I played flag, like, I was extremely dominant. Like, it came very easy to me. I played receiver, I played safety, and like I had a total like 38 touchdowns in one season as like literally 10 years old.
Yeah.
So like in that moment, like coaches were coming up to my mom, like where do you live? Like, where's your son going to be zoned for X, Y, and Z? So it was one of those things where naturally it came natural to me, but I also just loved it.
Yeah.
My mom never had to ask me to go practice, like, right? Like she forced us to play instruments, and she realized that me and my brother, like, we didn't really care for it. So football just came natural to me, and it's something that I loved, where I think for a lot of parents now, they struggle to like instill hard work in their kid. Because if you have like, if you come from nothing and you build something for yourself, you now want your kid to live an easier life. So by doing that, you provide them the best trainers, the best coaches, the best X, Y, and Z. And at times the kid sometimes ends up not loving the sport because their dad was forcing them to do it. Parents live through their kids in that lens. My mom never asked me to do that shit. So football was a passion, And it's why I was so serious about it in terms of not only my identity, but how I approached it, like in terms of preparation and like the execution of it and all the back end stuff.
How hard was it, like, as a kid, you lived in, or your parents split, and then you moved, and then maybe you just got comfortable, and then you move again, and then you have to, like, make new friends, and now you got to show people here that you know how to play football and all this and that. So how hard is it as a kid, like, just to go through all that?
It's sucks in the moment, but it builds grit. And it's like, it's just what it is. And it's exactly like why it's easy for me to come here and move to a new city and not know anyone, but not be uncomfortable about it. I think most people in life are afraid of failure and or judgment. And that's why they don't do things that they actually want to do in this world. I think in those moments when I was 10 or when I was 7 or when I was 13, like having to make new friends, it does suck. It is uncomfortable. It's hard. But the more you get used to it and you show up as like your authentic self in whatever circle you're entering into, that was the one thing that stayed the same for me. Like my circles changed, the location changed, the teachers changed, the students changed, but I was always myself. And it's how I actually approach life right now, like today. I don't change how I act because Jesse Itzler's there. Or because I'm in the collective, or because I'm running a 10K. Like, I'm actually just going to be who I am. And if some people don't rock with it, then that's okay. And it's like, I'm not going to be for everyone. And I don't, and you shouldn't try to. Because at the end of the day, your own inner peace is the only thing that matters. So it was tough in the moment, bro. But it definitely built up my level of callousing when it came to like making new friends or putting yourself out there. And it still impacts me today.
I lived here my whole life. He's basically lived here his whole life. CJ, same thing. Why? You might have been the first. I don't know if you're the first, but why Austin? Like, why'd you choose everywhere? Why did you choose Austin? You had New York close to you. You could have gone to LA. Like, why Austin, Texas?
Because I've never been here before. You know, it's funny. It's even like I love New York. I grew up in New York. Like it was. I grew up in New York, but I never lived there. It's a weird feeling, right? Like you go there, like I see it. Like I've been to Times Square, I've been to Hudson, I've been to live in Empire State, I've been to all these things, but I never actually lived there. And it's a super dope spot. I love every time I go to New York, but Austin was like one of those things where I had never experienced what Texas was about. So there was 2 cities I wanted to move to. One was Atlanta and one was Austin. And at the time, Atlanta, I was just there a couple of days ago. A good friend of mine had a run club called the Atlanta Run Club. This was back in 2021 when I was like making my decision. And I knew that if I went to Atlanta, culturally, it fits exactly to who I am. They have a lot of diversity, a lot of Asian culture, a lot of Korean culture specifically, a lot of African American culture. Like it's just like that's how I grew up playing football. I was always surrounded by African Americans. Always, I was never around only Asians. So for me, like coming, even my college was mostly white people. So I'd never actually been in an environment where it was solely like Asian specific people. And Atlanta would have been a little bit more comfortable for that. In addition to like, I would have just helped my buddy James build Atlanta Run Club. It would have been easy for me to integrate with their community. And in my mind, dude, I visited Atlanta for like a week. Me and my brother drove down there and I wanted to just kind of see it. And I knew that like it was so dope. I had a great time, but it would have been easy for me to make that decision. Like there would have been like it would have been a very like easy like transition to like, oh yeah, like dude, I know James from like my brother's mutual friend X, Y, and Z. So that's why I moved here, and I would just build my content and do X, Y, like do that whole thing. But something about Austin, people have always told me dope things about it. I've heard great things about it. It's rated as #1 city to live in a couple years ago, like all these things. But for me, I like to experience my own thing. Like I want to go through it myself. I don't want to hear someone tell me that a food place is good, but I want to make the decision for myself. So the decision to come to Austin was the fact that one, I didn't know anyone when I came out here, so I wanted it to be like a fresh start. And secondly, I had heard a lot of dope things about this city, but I wanted to go make my own I wanted to make my own opinion about it, not take other people's feedback and kind of like be like, yo, I heard Austin's dope, but I've actually never been there, you know? So I wanted to make it my own because I also knew that like, for me, it's like, regardless of what city I've chose, it would have been dope regardless. It's just a matter of where, like, what season of my life I'm in right now. And Austin just happened to be a city that it just worked out really fucking well.
That's dope.
I guess from that, and then I remember when I first met you, and I was just like, I've seen your content before, kind of like when I first followed you going through your stuff, and I saw that you initially did football content because you played, running routes, doing stuff like that. And I was like, didn't even know you did that, because it's like you just see this person that just runs all the time. So then putting two and two together, I guess, what was that shift that made you want to start documenting content in general? Because you were doing it before, and then when you really focused on running, you started documenting that as well.
Yeah. Well, kind of like when I said in the origin story, like it started because I was a trainer first. Mm-hmm. So I had a business called the Athletes Marathon where I trained former athletes and specifically football players, because it's what I knew. Mm-hmm. Like this is before I even got my training certification. Like I was just like, yo, I played 10 years of football. I played college football. Like I can get y'all right in the sense of like doing box drills and footwork drills for receivers. So it started with that first. Like that was the content I made. If you scroll down far enough, it's a shit ton of videos of me doing football drills. Not only me teaching it or me doing it, but like showing other kids how to do it. And like that would be the content that I was creating. How all of this started though was that I'm a big consumer of Gary Vee. And now it's funny because like I've met Gary a few times, and like it's awesome being able to see the person that you kind of like look up to and or like wanted to emulate. And then to just be able to like rub shoulders like together in the sense of like being in the same like room or vicinity or just even in the same ballpark in any capacity. I'm much smaller than Gary, but just like he's human to me, you know? But he has this framework like document, don't create. And that's kind of the framework I adopted, is that I'm just going to showcase my journey of building whatever I'm doing, or in this case, like football or running or whatever it is. And I'm just going to share it with the people that follow me. And at this time I had maybe 2,000 followers. Like no one was really watching my shit, but I just stayed consistent over time. Like it didn't matter that people didn't watch it or that my following didn't grow, because I knew that at the end of the day it was for myself. And at some point someone would end up seeing it. And that's kind of how it started. Now, specifically what made it running the thing was that after the pandemic, I couldn't see clients anymore. I couldn't like work with football players, right? So all I could do is like do my own wellness, my own fitness. So I asked my neighbor to install a pull-up bar in my garage with a metal PVC pipe and a wooden block. And I was just on some Goggins shit of like, yo, I don't need shit. I need a pull-up bar and I need some running shoes. And I was doing the Murph. I did the Murph 30 days in a row. If you don't know what the Murph is, it's a CrossFit workout. It's 1 mile, 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups, 300 squats, another mile. You do that for 30 days in a row, you get 60 miles at the end of the month. How many push-ups is that? That's 3,000 push-ups, 6,000 or 3,000 pull-ups, 6,000 push-ups, 9,000 squats. So that was like, I documented that. I made a YouTube video. It's a shit video. It's probably far down in the videos. But that framework from Gary of just like, stop trying to create content. Too many people when they start, that's what they try to do. They're like, I need to be the expert in this, and start making content of like, these are the top 3 ways to lose weight. These are the top 3 ways to run a marathon or run a mile. And I never made my content like that. It was always, this is how I did it. Now, if you resonate with that, awesome. If you don't, awesome. But I'm not a running expert. I just shared how I approach it, more of the mindset around it versus it being tried and true. So that's kind of what happened. And my brother helped me make one of my first, this is like the first time my brother actually hopped on a bike and filmed. We were at a track and we were doing like 400, 800 meter repeats. And it was the first time my brother actually brought the track and like recorded clips of us running. And after that, I posted one of these videos, and like there was some traction of like, people were like, yo, how did you get this shot? Because like the running shot when you're sprinting is very hard to capture unless someone's on an e-bike or a scooter or like a one wheel. So I think there was part of that too, of like, it was like newer for the running community because only Kipchoge and only these guys that run in races get the car that tracks them. So for just some creator that didn't know who the hell he was doing, that played football, to have this video of like, yo, this guy was sprinting. I think started to create some buzz in addition to me not being a runner, being a football guy that got into running, which is a form of punishment for us.
Yeah.
made it relatable for a lot of people, I think. But I think that was the kind of the transition.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome.
I played baseball, so
Yeah.
it's like running was, because I was a pitcher, so running was, that's what you had to do. You get all, after you pitched, you have all the lactic acid just built up in your arm. So the next day your arm's hurting or whatever, but that's what we had to do, was just run. And that's how you just got the lactic acid out of it, and I hated it. It was like I had to do it, but it was like, for me, it was like a punishment. I was like, man, I don't want to run. Nobody likes running.
Of course.
Yeah, everybody hates it. It's like, man, I don't want to do it. Even if you like work out, it's like, man, I don't want to do cardio. Like, I just lift and do my own thing and just skip the cardio and call it a day.
100%.
It's just not, I don't know, it's not fun. Nobody really likes it.
When you started blowing up from the content, I guess, when was that shift in your mind where like, okay, this can become more than just me documenting this, making this a hobby? Obviously you were training and becoming a personal trainer, but when did you realize, oh, I can really change my life with this content?
I think the first moment, not to change my life mindset, but the first moment when I kind of saw traction happening was like it was on TikTok. Like I grew to like 250,000 on TikTok fairly fast because I was pretty early. And I got brought out to the Boston Marathon with Nordic Track, and it was unpaid, but they paid for my travel. They gifted me like a treadmill, which is pretty expensive, probably $6,000-$7,000. So it's like there was still some exchange, but they brought out 2 other creators, my buddy Hella Sidibe, also known as Hella Good, and this girl Grayson. I forgot her last name. Nonetheless, she's a racer. She's a pro runner, runs with Saucony, lives in Utah. Her Instagram's Racing Grayson. And I'm almost positive. I'm positive that they both got paid, and I was the one that kind of was there for fun, like just kind of as like an extra. The guy that worked at the agency told me after that trip, he said, Matt, this is just the start for you. He said, watch what happens in the next 3 to 6 months. And I didn't know what he really meant by that. But after that trip had gotten completed, I started getting hit up by brands. And this is when I was in my mom's house, still in Maryland. Hey, Matt, like, we want you to review this shoe. We want you to review these headphones. We want you to do this. We want you to do that. And I'm like, oh, shoot, like a couple thousand here. Like, oh, shoot, you want to pay me this much? And then I started finding other creators and entrepreneurs and people that were in this space. And I tried to just get intel of like, yo, like, what do you charge for this? People are like, oh, dude, you can make a video, like, charge like $3,000 or charge $5,000, charge $12,000, charge $20,000. I'm like, damn, bruh, you can make that much money off making a TikTok? And the more I started to expand my own network and get more curious about the business side of the creator economy, I started realizing that like, oh shit, you can make a business out of this. And it wasn't actually so hard to realize because like if you look at Jake Paul, Logan Paul, you look at Mr. Beast, you look at Casey Neistat, like there's people that have done this shit, right? At a way higher level. Even for me, like money wasn't always the only factor for me. Like I turned down a lot of money deals because it doesn't fit for my brand or my audience. And like, I don't just chase after the bag because I know it's always going to come back because I'm going to be in this forever. So some creators might tell you something different. Like, yo, you should just go chase money. Like just make as much as you can. And like, there's nothing wrong with that. It's like playing on offense, right? Like, there's the West Coast system. There's the Power I. There's multiple ways to win a Super Bowl. And it's just a matter of how you want to approach it for your own brand. But for me, I always knew that like I didn't do this shit just for money and for clout, right? Like I wanted to build something that kept me fulfilled. Like every day I wake up, right? I think it's Monday or Saturday or whatever day I want it to be. And it's because like I chose freedom more than just a monetary exchange. So that was the moment kind of like, oh shit, like there's something there. But dude, I'll be honest, like it's kind of like that old saying, like when one door closes, another opens, or 3 open. And when I moved to Austin, I swear to God, it was like God telling me, like, Matt, like this is meant for you to get uncomfortable again, to put yourself out there and watch what I do for you almost. And like I moved to Austin, 3 weeks later, I get hit up by Nike, by Dick's Sporting Goods, by like Adidas. And these major brands, I'm like, I always wanted to be a Nike athlete. Like every kid playing football, every kid growing up wants to be sponsored and be a Nike athlete. I want to be the next like Michael Jordan, even though as a creator, it's not the same level as being KD or Kyrie Irving. But in some cases, it's pretty damn close. Like it's as close as you're gonna get, right? Like in terms of being a
Yeah.
sponsored creator, a sponsored athlete. I mean, dude, I don't play a professional sport, right? Even though running is technically the dope thing about running. Side note is that it's the only sport where you can run the same course as the pros. When Kipchoge ran Boston, I ran the same course that same day as him. I won't ever be able to play on the same court as LeBron while he's playing it the night of the finals. You know what I'm saying? It is different in that sense. So being a Nike athlete, or being a Nike creator, like I was like, oh shit, like there is something here.
Yeah.
And to finalize this story, the moment really happened for me was when I did this partnership with Dick's Sporting Goods and the Pittsburgh Marathon. And I had a buddy of mine, Hella was also part of this thing, and they brought like 8 different creators to run this race. And the other friend of mine that I've now really gotten a close relationship with, his name's Brian Mazza. And me and him really just connected and clicked. Like he just like, we both just kind of got along really well. And like, you know what, something I've realized is that, you know, to our point of like, you can't please everyone. You're also going to connect with some people more than others. And sometimes in this space, like, you know, there's people I follow online that I'm like, damn, they were so dope. They were doper than I thought. At the same time, there's some people that you meet and you're like, damn, they were kind of underwhelming. They like, you know, they kind of put that facade on like on social, like they're this, but they're really not. And like, that's just an expectation thing as humans. Like we put Kim Kardashian, Kanye West on a pedestal because we don't really know them. You see the spotlight and how they act in those moments, but that's all you can base it off of. But when you actually meet these people, you break bread with them, you chill with them, you start realizing like who's actually just genuine and who's kind of just for the cameras. So me and Brian really got connected and we resonated, and like we were kind of talking about like how much we got paid for this job. And in that moment, I'm like, damn, like he was just really willing to give me game. He's got 10 years on me. He's been in the industry, right? And I realized I'm like, I want to be that type of guy that like, there's no gatekeeping, right? He told me, he's like, he got paid like 60K or some shit. And I was like, damn, I got paid 30K. So I was like, damn, I guess like I did pretty good negotiating for myself. I have no agent. I rep myself. Like I read my contracts. Now I have a legal team. But at that moment, like no one was getting 10% cut of my shit. I was just like, I'm going to just die on my own sword, figure it out as I go, make a shit ton of mistakes, and then learn from it. Once again, playing the long game. Like I just knew that at the end of the day, like I'm going to continue to do this. So I'm not in a rush. But those moments with those people, that shit changed my framework. Where he said that number, and I'm like, yo, that's someone's annual salary, bro, and some. That's when I was like, this shit's proper.
Yeah.
And for someone like, for Jake Paul, that's small.
Yeah.
He's getting $6 million. But for someone that's on the other side of this screen, like that's only getting paid $60 or $600 for their UGC video, understand that at some point there will be a breakthrough if you stay consistent and diligent and disciplined over a long period of time, to then turn that into 6,000 or 16K or whatever number you can dream of. Like it's very doable, but most people don't play the long game.
If you would have told college Matt, this is your life, would you ever believe it?
I mean, not this exact life.
No.
I knew that like I knew I wasn't going to go the typical route, even though my actions were leading to that. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
bro, once I realized that like, you know, like I'm done playing football, I went into the route of like what most college kids do is like, you know, they start partying more, they go out more, they have a hell of more free time.
Money.
More money. You start like, you know, applying for jobs. Like this is second half of my semester, right? As a now not as a student athlete, just as a student. And I mean, I checked off all the boxes of like I had a job lined up before I walked across the stage. Like my mom didn't worry about, oh my God, Matt, when are you starting? Like I didn't take a summer off and go abroad. Like I literally had my job lined up to start in August. And when I was at that job, I never would have envisioned the type of freedom that I've created for myself now. So to answer your question, I don't think I envisioned this exact life. And someone asked me that recently, like, did you know that you were going to do what you were doing now? I'm like, no, like I didn't think I would be running a media company that supports myself as a creator. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't think that. the funny thing is that I studied marketing in college, marketing and management, and I did social media marketing. I did these classes, and I was like, imagine what I would do. But at that time, dude, Instagram was so different. Yeah. Videos had just became a thing, but like people just showed highlights. It wasn't reels. It wasn't like TikTok hadn't been made yet. I mean, it was probably what was it called before TikTok?
Vine.
No,
Thriller.
Triller. But then there was
Musically.
Tumblr.
Musically.
Yeah.
Musically.
And he had Tumblr as well.
But yeah, Musically was the real one that was like the short form content.
Yeah.
After Vine, because Vine was 6 seconds. Musically, you had some time to actually do shit. But when TikTok bought them, it changed the game, the landscape of social media. Back then, if you scroll back far enough, it's all pictures. Like I just posted pictures of me playing football and games, practice, training camp, all that shit. So I didn't expect that. Or at least what I do now. I never would have thought I would be running marathons, bro. I'd be lying to you. I'd be lying to your face if I said that I knew that I would be running endurance and doing ultras and shit like that. It wasn't even in my mind. It wasn't even a thought. I didn't even know who fuck David Goggins was, bro. But I think this is a testament of being curious, of being adaptable and open-minded to new things. Because at the end of the day, as humans, that's the only thing that happens, is that change happens. Just like how they came out with Threads. Mm-hmm. What are you going to be mad that people on Twitter right now are mad that Instagram is just copying them? Well, Instagram did the same thing with Snapchat. Mm-hmm. Who's on Snap, really? Right? So I think being open-minded to change and being curious when it does happen, to like lean into it and to seek it, it's how I live this life. Like I don't want to be someone that's like, yo, it needs to be this way because I made it successful in this fashion. If I lost all my followers tomorrow, I know I would be able to gain it back because I would just figure out what's current. Mm-hmm. So I didn't know. But I think for anyone listening, if you actually want to stay on the side of playing offense, quote unquote, right? Like not playing the defensive route, right? I always played offense, quarterback and receiver. So I want to score points. Mm-hmm. I don't want to sit back and play prevent and protect what I got. I want to go make shit happen. And by doing that, you're going to throw interceptions. You're going to take risks. You're going to lose money. You're going to lose relationships, followers, people. But you're also going to gain along that way, scoring points, making plays, small wins, getting first downs. So that's kind of how I approach it, similar to football in that sense. And I'm glad I played offense.
Yeah. I was a DB, so yeah.
So we think, it's like different.
Yeah. That's cool. I guess, don't know how much you want to talk about this, but I was listening to your podcast with Eric at the Kollective, and he asked you about the Houston Marathon.
Yeah.
And I know like that was like a big thing in the running community. I like read the article and stuff. But if you want to talk and
I'd love
elaborate
to.
on that,
I'd love
to hear it.
Another moment of a micro failure. Every human has it, right? There's no story or movie that us three or us four watch or like to read or consume that is this linear progression of someone's growth. There's always something that happens, right? And even for me, it was one of those moments. It was a test of my own character. I ended up running a race because I'm much of like a procrastinator. And this is how I operate as an entrepreneur. It's like, oh, one door closes. Let me find the side door. Let me find another way. Like you're not going to tell me no 3 weeks before a race that I've been training for to PR just to tell me that I can't run it because there's no more bibs available. So now granted, being organized, being on top of shit, there are pros to that, and you should do that. And that's kind of what I learned. But in this moment, I had a friend that was running the race as well that texted me. He's like, dude, I'm like looking for your name. I'm looking for your bib number, and I can't find it. And this is 3 weeks before the race. This is probably in December. The race is mid-January, January 14th or 15th. And I'm like, hold on. And I started looking through my emails, like trying to find a confirmation number. And I'm like, fuck, I don't think I signed up for this shit. Mm-hmm. But this race was sold out, and they don't allow transfers of bibs. Like if you had a bib and I didn't, but I was like, yo, you got hurt or something happened, your ankle got twisted, whatever, you wouldn't be able to exchange it with me in their system. Like they don't allow that because it costs more. It's more paperwork on the back end for them. Yeah. So I took the matter in my own hands, speaking on my buddy from Atlanta Run Club, my buddy James Rowe. They had a huge turnout from their club. 40 runners went to go run this marathon. And I knew, I was like, dude, someone's got to back out. Someone's going to probably not run. They had 3 extra bibs that no one was going to run. People had paid, but they weren't going to go. So I was like, oh, I'm good. I'm set. I was like, yo, let me get one of them. He's like, I got you. I'll save you one. So I'm like, all right, bet. I'm not thinking anything of it. I don't announce shit on social. I'm just like trying to play undercover. I'm like, yo, we'll just kind of go figure it out. Really what I should have done in that moment is make a video like, yo, I don't have a bid for this race, but I found someone's and I'm going to use it. Now, if I played on the offense on that situation, I might have gotten backlash and someone might have told me like, yo, don't do that because you'd be a bib meal, X, Y, and Z. At that moment, dude, I didn't know what a bib meal was. Like, I didn't think it was that serious. Like, this shit happens all the time, I'm sure. And a lot of runners have told me that this is a common thing. Nonetheless, I run the race. I run a sub 3 hour marathon, which is a Boston qualifying time. That was probably really what made this more of a big deal than it was, because after the race was done, I was actually disappointed in my time. I'm like, I wanted like 250. I would have been happy with like 254, 255. I ran a 259, barely hitting sub 3. And it was just like a hot day for me. Nonetheless, 24 hours later, I'm filming a YouTube video in my office in Austin. And I get a text from one of my buddies from Believe in the Run. His name's Thomas. He goes, yo, check out this article. And it was the article that you probably read. This guy, Derek from Marathon Investigation, he makes a living off finding people that cheat the system, that cut the course, that are bib mules, are bandits. People do this often to get like a loved one into a Boston Marathon, right? So an article gets written, Instagram influencer is a fraud and a bib mule, and whatever else the article said. Obviously, at this point, they only had gathered information based on what they found online. Now, in that moment, I was a bib mule. Like, I used someone else's bib to run this race. But they made it seem like this guy was like obviously trying to get him into Boston and all those things. And obviously, it looked like that. It was tough for me to hear and see a lot of negativity in my content, because typically it's the opposite of that. It's super positive. It's super uplifting. It's super inspiring, not just from me, but even people in the comments, people uplifting each other, right? But this was a moment where every post I was posting, spammers and 1% of runners really were pissed. How could you, like, the guy I ran for was Eric Lee. Like, they were calling him like Eric Lee, like basically like really going in on this situation. And I just had to take a step back, and like for 48 hours, I'm like, let me just chill for a little bit. Like, I was on my way. I was going out of town for a podcast with Mark Bell, and I just took like 2 days off social. I was like, yo, I'm just gonna chill. Let me not like feed fuel to the fire right now, because any post, all this negativity is gonna happen. And even though people were like defending me, for me, it was just like, it kind of hurt myself and my brand in the sense that like the one time that you make a mistake that like, dog, there's way worse shit you can do in this world than be a bib mule. Like, if we're talking about the grand scheme of life, right? But obviously it's still a mistake. And in my position, it's very easy to have a target on your back because I put everything out there. So the worst shit that happened really was that the brand I was working with, Nike and Dick's Sporting Goods, were kind of pissed. More Dick's Sporting Goods was. And it was to the point where they were like, we don't want you to post anything related to Nike or Dick's Sporting Goods. And like, your contract right now is actually up for review because of this controversy. And I'm like, fuck y'all. Like, that's how I felt. That's how I felt of like, yo, like, damn, like, it's that easy. As quickly as it's given to you, it can get taken from you that quickly, right? And it was just interesting for me to just sit in my own thoughts and like reflect on the decision I made and then the impact that this was going to have moving forward. And ultimately, I go to Sacramento, record this podcast with Mark Bell, and I just got really good counsel from people that I respect and look up to. Mark had told me, he's like, Matt, at the end of the day, you could like people are going to have their perspective on this regardless of what you say or you don't say. You have two options. You either come out with like a response video claiming your story, or you just kind of let this like brush under the rug and like you go about your life, and in a week they're gonna be pissed, but so be it. You just go about and go do it your shit typically. And that was kind of the response, and that was the feedback from a lot of my mentors of like, either own it or try to ignore it. And for me, I'm just the type of person that's like, yo, I'd rather be the learning lesson for other people and people can like hear my story and also just hear like my perspective on it. Like at the end of the day, I wasn't trying to run sub 3 for that guy. I just wanted to run a race, right? And my unorganization, my procrastination led to just me not signing up. And that's why it's so easy for me to talk about now. Cause like, I'm not embarrassed. I'm like, yo, it's some human shit.
Yeah.
Like as entrepreneurs, like we have so much shit going on that honestly at times, like the simplicity of signing up for a race that you're talking about that you're going to run almost gets overlooked, because I've been at races where you're able to sign up for the race a day before and it's still open. But this race was a little bit more popular because people go to BQ. Nonetheless, it was a true test for me of like what my character is really about. And in that moment, I learned more about myself through that failure than I did through a lot of the other wins that I had. And a lot of people that saw the response video said that they had more respect for how I went about it and actually owning it and like confronting it versus it being just like an ignored thing. And that's how I would treat any mistake I make moving forward. Is like, yo, everyone's not gonna love it. And they don't need to. So that's kind of the bib meal shit.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't know it was that serious.
Yeah, neither did I. When I read that, I was like, I felt like
because I listened to the podcast as well, and you were talking. I was like, I had no idea. Like, you're just going to run, and you have a number, and that's that. I didn't know it was that serious. That's crazy.
I think what I'll say, the final point is that, you know, the running community has been dominated, and it's been kind of like that old school saying of like, but it's just the way that it's been. It's just the way that it's gone. Right?
Yeah, traditional.
It's traditional. It's like how the true runners see this type of sport. And I think in that framework and in that philosophy, it's actually the opposite of how I go about life and what I just told y'all about. Like, yo, be adaptable, be curious. It's the exact opposite for the running community in certain cases, this one being specific. Like, it makes no sense that you're not able to transfer a bib. All that is the back end work of some form of AI or technology just to like literally replace your name and put my name in. Other races do it. It's a capitalist move of, hey, you paid for it, so what? If you don't go, then you don't go, right? But in those moments, I love being someone that disrupts the running space and makes people realize that maybe there are certain things that are flawed in this space that need to adapt, because as more people enter this sport, as more diversity enters the sport, there's going to be things that happen that ultimately it shouldn't be as big of a deal as it is represented as. And that is a perfect case of like, just because it's been done that way for a long time doesn't mean that it's the best way, period.
Yeah. One thing that I did like that you did say in that podcast was, even though there's like a winner who does win it, everybody else could be a winner as well. They set a new PRs or they reached a new mile they haven't reached before, whatever the case is. I did like that in that podcast you said that.
Yeah,
I think really thought about it like that.
It's the dopest thing about running. Every day, someone can PR. Everyone can PR. And obviously, there's people that are racing to win. There's a select few. For the people out there that are watching or listening, understand that like, the elite running community is less than 1% of the runners that run. Like, there's like 15 to 20 runners out of 50,000 runners that are fighting to win the race. That's not even 1%.
Yeah.
It's like 0.00001 of the runners that are actually completing this challenge, completing this distance. So whether you're fast or slow, bigger or smaller, the distance is the distance, and it should be respected upon in that fashion. And I think so many times now people are like, oh, you're slow or you're fast. It's like, no, it's all relative. Like, I'm slow as shit compared to Eliud Kipchoge. Some people think I'm fast as shit. I'm like, it's all relative on how you see it and what your current speed is. But everyone is going to be slow or fast compared to someone else in that sense.
Any advice you would give to people in like the trying to get into the running or just in fitness in general?
Yeah, I mean, I would say build off small habits. There's so much information now, right? Like you can go watch Huberman. He'll give you way more scientific knowledge than I can. But in the sense of just fitness, wellness, running, like there's nothing science about you starting.
Yeah.
Everyone can choose to start. Now, how detailed you get in from there in terms of like, do I power lift? Do I CrossFit? Do I run? Do I do endurance? Do I swim? Is entirely up to you and what you're interested in. But to put your shoes on, to enter the gym, to do any of these things, to just start your journey is totally an internal game. And that's where I would start. In addition to trying your best to sleep more and eat better quality foods, you do the minimal things that actually don't take time at the gym, you will start to move the needle and feel better. But we'd have another long conversation if I try to actually explain why certain things work for others and work for me, work for whoever. But for most people, my advice would be stop thinking about it and just start doing something. And in the process of doing something, you will start to find and be curious to what's going to impact you to make it a sustainable practice.
I guess like piggybacking off of that, like you've ran a ton of races this year. So obviously, how are you training, preparing for that? Your, eating, nutrition, your weightlifting, your miles, I guess, like how is that all factored in with the amount of races you're entering in this year?
I would say that it's different. Like I'm actually not in the best shape right now. Like when I was training for sub 3, I was in way like tip top shape versus right now. Like right now I'm kind of in just like a maintenance stage where I'm running maybe 30 miles a week, 35 miles a week, a lot lower versus in peak marathon training, I was running 60 miles a week, twice the volume of what I'm currently doing. But when you're running a marathon every single month, your body gets broken. Like it's just what it is. Like it's a far distance, and most people complete one marathon a year, let alone doing 12, right? So in terms of the volume of running, it's significantly decreased. But with that, I've increased my volume in the weight room and doing other plyometrics and single leg stuff, and just kind of using the weight room as a cross training opportunity to keep my muscles aligned, but also confused, because running is this very singular, like linear path, right? It's like you do with one movement for 30 something thousand steps. But on that, you start to use the same muscles over and over. So if you're not training and developing other muscle groups, it leads to a lot of injuries. So the first thing is decreasing my mileage in running, doing more cross training. In terms of nutrition, I'm fairly simple. Like I follow a Mediterranean diet. I intermittent fast. I eat 1 gram per pound of protein based on my body weight. And I try to strength train 3 times a week, where I'm basically able to keep some muscle mass. I'm definitely not the most jacked or the most ripped I've been in my life, but I'm able to maintain the muscle I have while also keeping my endurance steady. And then the last thing is the most important thing I should have said first is probably sleep. I've probably gotten the best sleep in the past 6 months than I had in the past year of training hard as shit for the marathon. I get anywhere from 7.5 to 8 hours of sleep per night. And I think that's probably been the biggest thing to really like recover. And like sleep is the biggest thing for most people, especially as you get into this like performance training or like doing anything that's like somewhat like out there. You need to sleep. Like at some point, like there was times where I was only sleeping like 5-6 hours during peak marathon training, because I was like, I need to be up at 5:30 because I have to beat the sun. And if I need to get this 18-mile workout done, like I cannot do that shit when it's getting hot. So those things have been helping me in terms of like being able to run each marathon. And I think the last thing is just like my mindset around the marathon distance is like, I've gotten comfortable with it. Like I'm able to like not stress or create anxiety of like, damn, I got to go run 26.2. When I first ran my first one, it was like, yo, this is the first time I'm doing this. But after I've done so many of them now, I'm like, I kind of know what to expect while still respecting the distance and not taking it like it's light, So it's kind of a marriage of like having a level of understanding while also not taking your foot off the gas and like disrespecting 26.2. Because at the end of the day, it is a challenge.
Yeah. That's a lot of miles.
It's a lot of miles.
How do you go about balancing everything? So like you say you run 30 miles a week, you still have your content creation, but at the same time, you still have like the business side that you have to still keep up with. So like, I know that your content creation is with running, but how do you pick and choose? Like, this is going to be the content and this isn't, like, and this is just for me.
Yeah. No, I love this question. I think balance is different for everyone. To your point, a lot of my lifestyle is the content. So I don't like separate it where it's like, yo, we need to make this type of reel in the morning and then I go about my day and like I can't do anything else, you know? Like coming here is content, right? Mm-hmm. Like I'll post this into my feed. I'll post feed of me going on other people's pods. I'll do certain like YouTube clips that are also clips for the for social things of that sort. So I think I'm at a point now with content that I have so much of it. I've scaled my content to the point where if I stopped recording for a week, I would still be able to post every day because there's something in the archives that I can just pull. Now, how am I in terms of strategy of like, this is exactly the type of reel I want to get? A lot of it is from the feedback from my own audience. Like I literally just ask the people like, what the fuck do y'all want to see? Drop it in the comments. And as I start to see popular questions that pop up over and over, I'm just like, oh, I'll make a video on that. So sometimes like the flywheel of my content is just through the feedback from the audience. But in terms of balancing business, personal stuff, content, running, it is a lot. It's juggling a lot of shit and a lot of these things overlap. So I think for me, it's just finding the right people and the right ways for these things to like not feel like it's like completely separate. Like a lot of what I do is just like, it's just part of my lifestyle now. Now, when people come into my life, like they have to somewhat adapt to that because yeah, it's like kind of fucking crazy. I record a lot of the shit I do. I fucking travel a lot and I'm barely in Austin. So there's obviously that mix of also just balancing the business. But I'm very fortunate that I love what I do. So it's easy for me to go all the fuck in because I don't feel like I work. Like this is a privilege. Like people that are stressing are like, I actually have empathy for people that have to like clock in and clock out. Like I don't know how I would function in those capacities. So the balance for me is that it's somewhat unbalanced. And in a way, it works for me because it's become my lifestyle.
How was it transitioning to you're creating this content? Hey, review our stuff. Hey, here's these deals. So what was the transition? Like you're a content creator. Now it's like, all right, here's the business side of it. Because you went to school for the marketing management.
Yeah.
But like learning business and then like being a content creator are two different things.
Facts.
So like how hard was it just like learning the business side? Because like you said earlier, it's a succeed and fail thing.
Yeah.
So just like you try something, if it don't work, that didn't work, let's try something else.
Yeah.
Was it more of like that, or is it like you got game from this person, you got game from this person, and this person, you just put it all together and went about it like that?
It was a mix. Trust me, I've definitely failed to deliver on what certain brands want for me to do. At the same time, I'm able to execute a lot of them because it's right in the wheelhouse of what I do. Me doing a product review about a shoe is very easy for me. I know what to say. I can kind of like put my own personality and twist to it and deliver them a product, a piece of content that's way higher level than what most people that they're paying the same amount of money can do. Just because I know how to put like my own flair to it. Now, the hardest part about the actual business is scaling it. Not just doing all of it on your own. The first 3 years of my business, like I didn't hire many people. I had a couple of videographers that helped me shoot, but like I would go in and edit all of it. Like I'm not an editor, but when you're an entrepreneur, you sign up to do anything. It's your business. It's your problem, period. So for me, it was a mixture of what you said. It was like, yeah, like I got game from a lot of other creators, but just because someone says that you can charge X amount of money doesn't mean that like that's what your current value is, right? You can take someone's feedback of like, yeah, this is what I charged, but you have to sell yourself to be that valuable, period. And some of that is like growing as you grow more, you gain more confidence and an understanding of your audience. I know for a fact when I post a running video or something related around products or running or things of that sort, that those videos will hit more than me on a podcast. And that's just what it is. It's a numbers game, right? But the business side is the toughest part for most creators because they don't want to get help on that side. They want to just be the creator the whole time. But for me, I actually find the creative stuff to come more natural for me. The business side is actually what I need to fine tune. So more and more, I've just found the right mentors and business coaches that help me along the way of like, yo, this is how you should think about your content, but also offering things that are outside of brand partnerships. And that was the biggest piece for me where I was like, yo, I can make all this money through partnerships. That's dope. But that's like one way to make money. Any entrepreneur that tells you that they're going to be like, yo, you need like 15, 20 different streams of revenue, not only from your stocks, your bonds, your ETFs, real estate, but even within your own business. If you think about Apple, they have the iPhone, the MacBook Air, AirPods, the cloud, store, like all those things. Like their AirPod division is bigger than most Fortune 500 companies.
Yeah.
That one product. So even for a creator, brand partnerships is one thing. You can sell consulting, you can sell books, you can sell podcasts, you can sell X, Y, and Z, merch, things, right? You can sell so many things. So I think for me, there's a level of finding the right mentors and then staying patient as shit, because if you try to throw too much at your audience too fast, it doesn't stick. And I think that's where a lot of creators make a mistake, where they're like, yo, I need to sell them this because I need bread. Well, if you decrease your actual living expenses and play the game longer, it's the Hormozy quote of, the longer you delay your ask, the bigger the ask can be. So that's kind of how I think about the business side of like, how did I actually take the knowledge, the mixture from entrepreneurs I looked up to, and then the network, and then me actually putting it into practice, was kind of like the 3-pronged approach of like how I've basically like built up my skill sets in that sense.
That's kind of what Pouch 6, when we were there, told us, because our videographer, he was like, oh, I'm only charging this much for like videos. He was like, I could do the same thing and charge $15,000. And he was like, you have to be confident in what you're saying. And then you also just have to like prove, like show you results that, yeah, I'm charging you this much, but you're also going to get this much with it. So that was one thing that's always stuck with me. And it's probably how it is for you now. It's like they were charging, say, $15,000, you're charging $5,000. It's like, well, yeah, I'm charging $15,000 because I can give you this, and then you're also confident of, hey, all right, give me $15,000.
I'm gonna make you this much money,
Yeah.
so you gotta get some kind of return.
And then also at the same time, just like there's a video they made for a company. It was a little quick 3-minute video or something like that, but he charged like $50,000.
Yeah.
But the company was putting it on YouTube, and you have to also realize like they're probably getting money from that video because the video is just something that anybody, no matter who you are, how old you are, can watch. So they're just collecting money. So they're going to surpass that $50,000 that they already paid you. So you also have to think about it like that as well. So if you made a TikTok, and everybody's on TikTok, and that TikTok gets, I don't know, 4.3 million views, they made pretty good money off that.
1,000%. And I think for like, if you think about like big brands like Nike, Under Armour, Adidas, like their marketing budget is 7-8 figures. It's crazy, right? So them paying 10, 15, 20K, whatever it is to a creator, it's still underpriced.
Yep.
From what it's required to pay a whole production team to film a proper 30-second trailer, that's like a $500,000 project. I've been on sets where Super Coffee Athletic Brewing, that was like a $500K project for a 30-second video. Now, if you think about all the expenses, you have to pay a videographer, a producer, a director, lighting person, sound person, all these jobs. Whereas a creator, you're one-man wrecking crew. You can produce the same video that probably will deliver better results for a fraction of the price. So even though the 15K, 10K for most creators is like, how do I charge that much?
Yeah.
It's still underpriced from what a big brand would have to pay a whole production team to produce. So to your point, bro, for most people, they just have to get into a perspective and into a mindset that like this is possible. And once they do, and they maybe hear enough of these like situations where people have maximized it, it makes the unbelievable very, very believable. And I think that's what is happening now. And it's why a lot of creators are maximizing in this space, because they're able to deliver a product that's much faster, that turnaround time is much quicker, and it will drive more results.
How has it been working with like the big brands, the Nikes, the Dicks, Kane? How's it been working with like those?
Yeah, I mean, I would say Kane's a smaller brand, but like Nike and Dicks and like Apple, Lululemon, like Adidas, I mean, these are some of the biggest brands in the world. The biggest thing I've seen is that clearly their budgets are significantly higher, so they're willing to compensate you more. But with that compensation, they want control. in some capacity, right? And the control typically comes in what you can say and the verbiage that you speak, because at the end of the day, they want to sell their product, right? And that's probably the biggest thing compared to like a Kane, that I have a partnership with them, right? Like I have say in terms of the product or how I want to rep it or how I want to sell it. And the difference is that some just feel like a quote unquote sponsor and others feel like an actual partnership. And when you're building partnership, you're not getting as much compensation, but you actually have skin in the game, right? Like you can develop your own product, your own shoe within the brand. You can provide feedback on what's working and what's not, or how you want to actually pitch it to your audience, because how I sell Kane is different than how my buddy Eric Hinman does, or my buddy Brian Mazza, right? Like they don't ever run a marathon and take off the canes and put them on immediately. Like those videos convert people because ultimately everyone struggles with that feeling of, I just ran 26.2 miles and I don't want to stay in these shoes. Now, what's the best shoe out there to actually wear to speed up my recovery process? Whether it's true or not, Kane is one of the best options in terms of a slide-in shoe that's more comfortable than wearing a carbon fiber race day shoe, right? So that right there, and I got my buddy John, who's the founder of Kane, to truly believe how much value I could bring, because at the Austin Marathon, they had a booth here at the expo, and I went out of my way to sit there at the booth with them for 2 hours, knowing that people were going to come up to me and be like, Matt, how are you feeling for the race? Or wanting to come take a picture or ask me what shoes I'm wearing. And I stood there right in front of the founder of Kane, and he realized like, shit, Matt's audience is sticky. Like they fuck with him enough that whether he says to go buy Skittles or to go buy Kane, that they actually might just get it just because he's repping it. And in that moment, I sold the contract without saying a word. Part of that is giving up time, knowing when is the right time to sacrifice the current for what you're trying to get. And a lot of my relationships in business stem from that, because I'm always trying to give more value than I take. To answer your question of what it's like with a big brand or a small brand, that story right there says it all. I don't have access to Phil Knight. I don't have access to the founder of Nike. I can FaceTime the founder of Kane right now on this podcast if I wanted to. That's probably the biggest thing too, is like access. I have an issue. I want to do something, X, Y, and Z. There's much more connection there than going through the agency, the marketing director, the CMO, right? Like there's so many hoops and hurdles when you're working with Nike. So that also, for a lot of creators, you might not see as valuable where you are right now, but down the line, as you want to continue to grow and find new ways to make money, but also invest into those brands, you're going to want to connect with the founder and not have to go through those hurdles.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So we met at the Kollective. We talked about it before. One of the most elite gyms I've ever been to in my life. Kind of what brought you there, and what does it mean to you?
Before you answer that question, have you been to Zoo Culture?
I haven't.
You haven't? Do you like the Zoo? Do you like Kollective better than Zoo Culture, gym wise?
Yeah, they're just two different types of gyms. I mean, I feel like the equipment at both gyms are the same, but the gyms are just like
The vibes, I guess, the
they're
atmosphere.
just different. Yeah, like Zoo Culture, shout out Bradley Martin. It's like that's like the strictly bodybuilding, and it's in California, so you have like a ton of influencers.
Yeah, it's like creators.
Exactly. It's a lot different. Kollective is more like close knit, private. You see the same people all the time, so you really like kind of build that community. Like I see the same people every time I go there.
It's like a family.
Yeah, exactly.
It's definitely more of like how it's branded, a social performance club. Like it's not meant to be like, even though they have NFL elite athletes and all those things, but like it's not designed like that for the everyday person, right? To answer your question, why Kollective? You know what's so funny is I was watching what they were building when I was in Maryland. I said, if I move to Austin, I'm going to this fucking gym. And this is when Kollective had white walls. This is when they were just early stages of just building it out. I actually sent a DM to Jeremy Hills, and I said, yo, Jeremy, I love what you're doing. I'm thinking about moving to Austin, Texas, and I would love an opportunity to come work out at the facility. He never responded to this DM. Fast forward, I move here in February. I don't actually I don't actually get a membership at Kollective until April. So I chill for like 2 months. I was actually battling through an injury, so I didn't get into the gym yet. But it was still like founders pricing when I first signed up. And I signed up in April, and I still hadn't had a real chance to like talk with Jeremy until probably like May. Another month goes by. And I'm like, dude, I'd love to just chat, like, let's just like 30 minutes, you know? I just want to like let you know what's going on in my world, my ecosystem. The funny thing is, actually backtrack, when I first got in there, I was getting PT done before I ever signed up. And he had come up to me just when I was getting PT and just introduced himself. And I was like, yo, I love what you guys are doing here. It's sick, and X, Y, and Z. And I told him, I said, what are y'all doing on TikTok? Because at that time, like, I always consulted people like, yo, you should get on TikTok. If you're not, why? Like, you're already making reels. Like, you might as well just post this shit on TikTok, get more exposure. There's more opportunities for organic reach. And he was like, I don't know, but we're not. It's a good question. And I was like, I want to help y'all with that. And then he like got me in touch with some of his trainers, and like it ended up not ever working out. But like, I definitely just planted the seed in his ear, like, yo, you want to win on multiple platforms, not just Instagram. Instagram's dope. Everyone wants to win on Instagram. But there's power in being diverse in other platforms, just like building different revenue streams. The funny thing is, we end up actually getting a meeting, and he looks through his DMs and he said, yo, look at this. And it was the DM that I sent when I was in my mom's living room in December. And I say that story to say that, like, for people that are listening, like, you want to do something, you want to like manifest it for yourself, like put good in the world. When I sent that DM, like, I didn't expect shit. He had 300,000 followers. He probably wasn't ever going to see that. And I get that all the time. People DM me and I can't read through all of them.
Yeah, that's a lot.
It's just a lot of people messaging you that you're not going to always see. But when he saw that fucking message, it was even more of like a stamp of like, damn, like Matt's really been like supporting even from afar ever before I even met the guy, before I stepped into the four walls. So to answer your question of why Kollective, I'm in a stage in my life now where like I want to be surrounded around elite people, not just from athletes, but like people that win at what they do in this world. Kollective is that. The entrepreneurs, the people that are employees, the people that are founders, that are creators, like whatever that they do, most people that step into those four walls are like elite at whatever it is. And when you're around that type of energy, it's not only contagious, but it becomes a norm. And it's scary when that type of human is the norm. When that's the status quo, you almost don't even want to surround yourself with anyone under that. And not that it's like some like fucking measuring stick of like who's the dopest or who's the smartest or whatever. But the saying is very true of you're the average of the 5 people you hang out with, right? And if you hang around savages and dogs, you will become the next one. You hang around with 5 dope ass businessmen and women, entrepreneurs, you'll be the next one. And that's why I have like this connection with Kollective, because it's exactly like who I am and who I want to be around. And then when I actually went to go experience it, it lived up to the hype enough where I just wanted to add value and bring my energy into the 4 walls for it to be a value add, not a value like take in that sense. And now it's been an opportunity for me to grow with them. And like, I'm actually going to host my podcast in their studio. So even things like that, where, you know, me posting about Kollective on my story on Instagram, it doesn't have a direct hit to their bottom line, but it creates exposure to this facility about what it is, right? Like, why does Matt work out at this gym? There's other gyms in Austin. There's other dope gyms, like Joe Rogan's that on it. Aubrey Marcus is that on it. There's Los Campanos, like all these, like Lift ATX, there's all these things, but there is something different when you step into Kollective. And until you do, you can't really have an opinion on it, because all you see is social and like, oh, it's a gym, it's a hype gym. People automatically assume because of price that it's a gym that's not for them. If you invest into yourself and if you care about investing into yourself, you would see the X amount of monthly membership as like, oh, I'm putting this back into me, because the one thing I always tell people is that when you go to Kollective, you just don't know who's going to be there that day.
No.
Saw John Morant.
All the time. I see people all the time. It's crazy.
Yeah, he saw John Morant. Send me a picture. That's John Morant. I was like, damn, that's crazy.
Yeah, that's how it is. You just always see somebody.
Hosted NFL Elite Week.
Never know.
It's a special place to be in, and like, you know, it's not just about the clout of like NFL, NBA athletes, but the fact that they're training in the same facility with you is obviously a cool thing. But even for people that are about business, like Founders, Super Coffee, ProMix, Athletic Greens, like the some of the companies that people aspire to be and or use and or want to be like, you might be just doing dumbbell incline with them right next to you. And there's opportunity there, as well as there's distractions. But in between all of that, it's where I've built a lot of my community since I lived in Austin. Like, I'm a firm believer that like once you kind of find your tribe, you stick with it. Like there's you know, and a side note is like about Austin and Kollective is that there's levels of like contentment for me. People mistake being content with being complacent. Being content is that understanding that like, yeah, like this is a dope situation. It could be better, it could be worse. Being complacent is like, oh, I'm good where I'm at. I don't really need to improve, you know? And people mistake the two. Being content for me leans a lot more into gratitude and understanding that like, damn, this is a really good situation. And that's how I feel about Austin and the Kollective. Are there better gyms? Are there sexier gyms? Is Alpha Land a sexier gym than the Kollective? 1,000%. It's bigger. It's got probably battered joints. It's physically like, it's just a bigger location. Basketball court, 6 gyms. But the type of quality that's in the Kollective, that's something that you can't really match. Similar to zoo culture. I haven't been, but I would imagine zoo culture is kind of more on the realm of like an Alpha Land where it's just like, it's a chaotic scene. But that's how I feel about the Kollective. It's a dope spot. Yeah. And people should check out some of their open community events.
Yeah.
Because he always says, he was like, I mean, yeah, it's this much money, but the connections you just meet there, you just, there's no price tag for that.
Absolutely.
Period.
Like meeting someone like
y'all,
Matt.
y'all met.
Meeting
Austin, yeah.
Jeremy, like all those people I've met and will continue to meet. Like I won't meet them unless I'm somewhere like that. And I mean, like you said, is one of the things, us starting this media company, I got an opportunity to get into the Kollective and I was like, it is X amount of money, but it's like, I'm going to invest in this not only for myself, but for what we're trying to build so I can make connections there and help us get to where we want to be, you know? So I think that's amazing.
I only got one more thing.
Okay.
I don't know if it was here. Nope.
All right. Quick question. What's been your top 3 races you participated in your running since you started your running journey?
Wow. Oh, man. This is the order I would say. Number 3 is the Grindstone 100. It's a 100-mile ultra marathon. The first 100-mile race I ever completed. And I say it's number 3 because it's physically the most demanding one I've ever done. But at the same time, it was like one of the most enjoyable because when you're in the mountain, when you're in the trail, it's different than being in the streets of New York City or Boston where people are raving and they're going crazy and they're yelling your name and cheering you on. There's no one out there. Like you need to find levels of grit and solitude and be appreciative of that. But that would be number 3. And then number 2 and 1 is a toss up. I think I would have to say number 2 would be Boston and number 1 would be New York. And off sheer just enjoyment of soaking in the energy. For me, I'm a type of person that a lot of people see me on social and they see me and they're like, yo, you're so extroverted, you're so this. And I'm like, if most people actually that know me, like I'm very introverted. I gain a lot of my energy from my own solitude. And in that solitude, I'm able to show up as someone that can give that energy back, right? But a lot of people, they overcompensate. They're like, yo, I need to be around all these people and like, I only want to be extroverted. I'm like, well, if you never find what the other side is about, then you're always going to be off balance. So for me, I live a life of 51-49, 51% introverted where I need to just figure out like what fuels my soul. I put myself first before anyone else. And in moments when you're a creator Everyone wants your shit. They want your time. They want you to talk to them. They want you to take a picture. They want all those things. And if you're not solid inside, all of that shit goes to shambles. So I always protect my own energy first. But in those races, there are moments where it's special. The shit that happens on those streets of New York City, where I kind of grew up somewhat, it's one of the best days in the city, in my opinion. You have a million people that don't know each other, that are cheering on strangers, wishing them the best. And it's actually what America's about, period. And I think in that moment, I realized, I'm like, I don't care if I run fast. I don't care what my time is. I just want to be present in this moment and soak that shit in. It took me 4 hours and 20 minutes to finish the marathon, slowest marathon I've ever completed. But it was by far the most enjoyable experience since I've gotten into running, period.
Sometimes it's all about just soaking in the moment.
So many people get so locked into like times, PRs, and they lose what makes it fun. And it's the people, it's sharing the moments. And look, I'm all about running fast. Like there's time and a place to run fast. Like you shouldn't do everything for PR. You shouldn't do everything just for fun either. But to find that happy medium, the balance of that, it's up to each individual. But so many people get burnt out in running because they just only want to hit a PR because that's how they would get validated. Like, I can do this. And maybe because I already hit the sub 3, I'm like, yeah, I'm like, I did this shit. So like, you want to run it again? Like, I fucking ran sub 3. Like, I checked that off the list. So like now it's like, I want to do the other stuff, you know, and show people that you can experience this in a different way.
Yeah, living the moment's important. Sometimes you just may never get it again. I mean,
Facts.
Conor McGregor, the first time when he was supposed to fight Jose Aldo the first time, but he ended up fighting Chad Mendes. And at the weigh-ins, like the post-fight, like everything was done, his interviews afterwards, he was like, I just wish I lived more in that moment. And he was like, I was just too caught up in like the emotion. He was like, just wish I lived more in that moment. And obviously, if he'd gotten again, but some people just, they get that one time and they're just gone after that.
100%. That was a great fight, by the way.
Yeah, I was there.
Were you?
Yeah, I was there. Yeah.
Chad Mendes put up a good fight, dude.
Yeah, I was a little scared, but that was fun. Last thing for me, goals this year, my personal goals within your media company, within content creation. What are those looking like for you back half of the year?
Yeah, I think there's instantly the first two things I think of is one, I'm doing a lot more consulting for creators, and I'm sure we'll be chatting about that in the next week here. Yeah. Where I want to just build different revenue streams. Like I love partnerships, but for me, it's like I want to be able to stand on my own my own feet of like, yo, my business can operate with if I dropped all my sponsors, if I dropped all my partnerships. I don't want to solely rely on that. Even it's a big part of my business, but I don't want to just rely on that. So I'm building out a consulting business. That's kind of on the business side. But on the physical, like running side, this is something that is true to, it's just like, it resonates with me. But I want to go back to Korea and I want to run this trail. It's called the Four Rivers Trail. It's 393 miles. It starts in Seoul and it goes all the way through Korea, South Korea, to this spot at the very bottom called Busan. And I want to run 15 marathons in 15 days.
Wow.
So a lot of the prep I've done might not be enough to get me ready for that. But part of the reason of me wanting to do a marathon a month is that I want to get so used to this distance that it's not, I can run a marathon tomorrow. Straight up. That I get so comfortable with it that doing it 15 days straight, I'll be able to accomplish it. So part of that is like not just the physical feat, but I want to showcase one, I haven't been back to Korea in 21 years. I went when I was 8 years old. So I want to also just go back to culture and show immigrants like, yo, a lot of us get born in America. Like I'm an Asian American. I was born in Jersey. I didn't get to go back to Korea and see what it's like in my own country, you know? And when I was growing up, like I was super embarrassed to be Korean. I used to get picked on all the time. Like my mom would pack me like Asian lunches and shit. And like people would be like, what the fuck are you eating? You know, all that kind of like the shit that you get when you're younger. Cause like you want to fit to Western society. Mm-hmm. So I want to just be a type of person that one challenges himself, but also showcases for other immigrants. Like, yo, you should be proud of where you came from. Go seek it. Go be curious about it. And like, you know, even when I go there, I might get shit on from the Koreans that live there. Cause they're going to be like, yo, you're Korean. You're dark as shit. You don't speak any Korean. Right? So there's always reverse racism too of your own kind. But nonetheless, that trip is something that I'm really looking my eyes on. November 1st through the 15th. Those would be the 15 days I run. And that'll cover 394 miles, which would be this entire bike trail.
You already have that booked and
The travel's not necessarily booked, but right now I'm pitching it to brands. So I'm right now trying to just raise money for sponsorships.
Yeah.
Because logistically it's a nightmare to do something like this.
Yeah.
Right?
It's expensive.
Yeah. So it's like from travel, from media help, from production, from operations, from food and hotel and lodging, all that shit, dude. It starts to add up. But in exchange, there's going to be a shit ton of content. So a brand or multiple brands could be a part of something like this to then get exposure, not only on YouTube in the sense of like a series, but also obviously through short form content and things of that sort.
That'd be a cool little docu-series.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Yeah. See, because CJ, he's half Filipino. He got to go back to, he got to go to the Philippines too. That's dope.
Yeah,
I love that.
To go back to the motherland.
It's
you don't know any the language at all.
I know some of it. I can hear a lot better than I can speak it.
Mm-hmm.
I just need to brushing up on it. Like I mean, I speak a little Korean to my dad, but it's very, very broken. So for me, it's just like I don't want to just have to rely on a translator or like I just want to be part of it. Like naturally, being in that environment, you're gonna learn. Right? Like, I'm sure when he was there, like, dude, when you're in the Philippines, when you're in Korea, when you're in whatever, like, when that's all they're speaking, shit, you have no option. You better start figuring something out, Yeah, so thanks. Naturally, I'm going to start doing some homework and just, like, instilling it, but also, like, watching, like, Korean shows and, like, just doing whatever I can to, like, start to, like, ingrain it in my own software.
Yeah. Well, that's it for me. Again, thank you.
fantastic.
I mean, we could probably sit here for hours and just talk. I mean, it's just when you're just having fun and conversations, it's easy to just go for hours.
No, that's a fact. Yeah. I appreciate y'all having me as a guest, man.
Of course,
I appreciate you coming.
Great
on.
energy.
Pleasure.
I mean, you're a good dude. You can tell, and you're very genuine. It's probably why you got a very positive fan base. So it definitely feeds off.
I appreciate it, man.
Yeah. Again, thank you taking time out your day.
Easy.
We're gonna put all our socials down below. Put the YouTube down below. Go check out his content. Great videos. More to come in the future.
Hell yeah.
Stay tuned for that mini doc.
Stay tuned for the mini doc.
Yeah. Most recent was Boston Marathon video.
The most recent one was, I think,
Grandma's.
Yeah.
Grandma's is the most recent one.
Yeah.
And the, what's it called? Grandma's is the most recent one. And then there'll be the San Francisco one, but coming up. But yeah, Grandma's is most recent.
I'm sure that by the time this drops, probably the San Francisco one will be out.
Most likely.
But that'll do it for my boys over here at Opinionated. We'll catch y'all guys next time. Peace.